Hello, this is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, Associate Professor and Program Director of Communication, Media, and Ethics at Mid-America Christian University. I'm here with the next in our guest interview series for creating social media presence and cultural movements. One of our top educational objectives in this course is strategic interviewing. We're working on our written communication skills, our oral communication skills, and our digital communication skills. And we're grateful and blessed to have guests joining us each week to talk about their areas of expertise, their professional experiences, and allow us to learn from them, kind of grow through dialogue, through professional engagement. And ultimately, at course's end, it's the student that's able to perform that written interviewee synthesis paper to identify, isolate, comment on the connections, the synergy that they're seeing between each of the guests and the takeaways that they're able to gain from them. As I've noted, both on our newsfeed and in the video preview, our guest for this session is Morgan Winery. Morgan, thank you for joining us and welcome to the online class space wherein you're working with kind of representative of Southwest Airlines, but you're more than that. You're more than just a corporate representative. You're a person. Would you, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to the place that you're at today?
Yeah, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I've loved all the questions, so I'm excited to engage with the class. My name is Morgan Winery, like Dr. Castleberry said, and I am an Oklahoma girl at heart that landed in the middle of Dallas, Texas. So I'm originally from Western Oklahoma, went to the University of Oklahoma, got my degree, and then headed south and started working in corporate America for an awesome airline, and have since went and got my MBA and my certificate of finance, and moved into the world of data analytics. So it's kind of something that I didn't necessarily always see myself in, but once I sunk my teeth in the data bug, I just got hooked and obsessed and learning of all the possibilities that you can do with sound data and what that actually means. So I really get energized by helping people understand and digest data, and have been able now to lead a team of people that can do that and be data ambassadors within our organization. So it's been a really fun challenge. It's been a fun ride, and yeah, that's where I am today.
You mentioned data analytics, and definitely for a course like this, where social media and digital connection play such a heavy role, we're recognizing the value and the increasing value in how we craft the digital footprint. But many of our student body, in addition to communication majors, we have a lot of digital marketing majors with us, and we're excited to be able to have these types of crossover courses that are going to give multiple disciplines opportunity to engage that type of content. I see data analytics, our data analytics program, as another tier that has that organic crossover. But you mentioned some of your tasks, and I think the students, they have some strong questions overall that really want to pick apart your professional experiences. So if you don't mind, I've queued some of those up. I want to, let's start with a question. Let's start with a big one. Let's start with a question from Avery, and we'll take it from there. It's a nice tie-in to kind of your coming on strong as an employee with Southwest Air.
My name is Avery Gregory, and I'm a student at MacU. My first question to you is, what was it like establishing yourself and a career in corporate America as a woman? And then
Okay. Is there any context here? Can we unique challenges that you faced, or just ways in which you're able to speak to empowerment as a contemporary employee?
Yeah, I think so my first job out of college, I worked at a law firm. I was a political science major, had aspirations of going to law school and what that looked like. And so I started kind of in the oil and gas industry. And then I moved to Southwest Airlines, and I was able to really see a difference in how women were treated and women showed up in the workplace. And so I think having an experience that I had prior to coming to Southwest made me appreciate being at Southwest. Currently, my senior manager is a female, my director is a female, and my vice president is a female. So I'm in a very unique position where I get to see what I want to be. And there's examples of women that are working mothers and that thrive and that are really performing high in their careers. And so that's inspiring to me. But I always go back to how I was made to feel small in my first role. And so that has kind of opened my eyes to some of the challenges that other people do experience throughout their job, whether it's pay disparity or whether it's how they're expected to show up or whether they're told to smile in meetings more or whatever that looks like. I mean, I think that you see those prejudices and they exist, and it's not helpful to pretend that they're not there. But I think knowing that you can persevere and you can come ahead and you can blaze these trails or follow behind these women that have blazed them for you is really helpful to know going forward.
You bring to mind an important point that we try to drive home in classes like public speaking, which is don't ever let that one meddling or poor or perhaps negative experience that you encounter shape your worldview, especially when it comes to communication or professional experience. I love that you're able to share that mixture of a corporate climate and then be able to kind of bounce away and appreciate the current surroundings. Extremely valuable. Let me jump back and finish a question from Avery here, and then we'll shift gears.
My second question is, what tools and skills does your team look for or value the most for newer employees? My name is.
Okay, what does the skill set look like in your department or the adjacent ones you work with?
So I've been in the position where I've been able to hire and interview people. And the thing that I really key into and try to listen for is someone that's a self-starter. So I can teach you any skill that you want, but if you don't have a curiosity that's like fundamental inside of you, that I want to go deeper, or I want to learn more, or I want to figure this out on my own, or I want to dig into these numbers, I can't spark that in somebody. And so what I really look for is somebody that is self-motivated, self-reliant, not to the point where they're too independent, but someone that can just start activating quickly. That's important to me.
Okay. We have several students extremely invested in some of these experiences, being able to kind of sponge information off of you. And I want to hear from Rebecca, and let's just move right across to some of her questions.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Cummins, and I am a senior here at Mid-America Christian University. Could you describe a common misunderstanding that seniors have when transitioning into full-time corporate careers? Tell me about a time.
I'm sorry about that. So transitions and expectations, maybe even myths, right? The myth making of the workforce.
I loved this question, Rebecca. So thank you so much for this. If there's so much that I wish I could unpack with this question, because there are just so many misunderstandings or misgivings, I think, once you finish your degree of what to expect coming into corporate America or any business, or probably education as well. But one of the things that I tried to really focus on with this question was, I think when you are in school and you're starting out in school and you have a project you complete or you have an assignment due, your feedback loop is really short, right? So you take a test, you get your grade, right? You study really hard, you do really well, you're rewarded with an A, right? And so I think there's this misgiving in corporate America where, okay, I've started my job, I did really good in this assignment, or I did really good in this meeting, can I be promoted yet? And you expect these things to happen really quickly, and it's more of a cruise ship. So, right, so you're playing the long game when you get out of college. And I think that's something that people forget about. And I don't know, Dr. Castleberry, if you've had that experience as well, but things move a lot slower. There's budgeting that's involved. There's approvals that have to happen that take months and months. And so when you get in those moments and you realize, okay, well, I feel like I've done really well and it's time for my reward now, just know that it isn't the instant gratification that you hope to have.
Yeah, it's such an important point because it's somewhat of a stigma attached to the young force today, right? That everyone that and I'm not suggesting it as my perception or my belief set, but I've read numerous articles and been privy to conversations where there is a sort of growing stereotype that millennials or millennials or everyone of a more recent age bracket is expecting an accelerated fast track up the ladder. And we, just like we're groomed to a degree as part of the collegiate experience, we have to be able to operate with reflexivity, right? To be able to even pause in real time and recognize, I don't know everything. I'm still, novice to this. In fact, it can be of immense importance. It can be a great asset to have and practice that skill, because by showing others that you recognize your own shortfalls, right? That willingness to continue to learn and play your role in a given team or project assignment is communicating that your awareness, right? And a deeper awareness. And it's tricky. It is hard because I think we're also taught that defensive mindset, right? That aggressive a way to tackle things, to be seen or have your work on display, whatever that looks like. But you also need to understand the culture with which you're working in. So you've got to navigate it. You've got to be able to move back and forth and create a sense of when the right timing is for those kinds of inquiries. Let's return to Rebecca and have her finish up here.
Tell me about a time when your experience with big brothers, big sisters carried over into your professional career at Southwest Airlines.
Okay, so applying previous experience.
So I actually found out about the Big Brothers Big Sisters program through Southwest Airlines. So they're a big partner with that. And so it was something that I wanted to give back. I had taught English as a second language for a while, and that kind of came to an end. And so I thought, well, what can I do next? And so I had the privilege and honor of meeting Nancy, who is my little, and she has since retired out of the program. She's in college now, which has been super fun to kind of walk with her through that journey. But applying that back to my role, I think it just gave me a new fundamental understanding that people are different and in a good way, right? So she has had a completely different high school experience than I did. She went to a really big high school. I'm from the sticks, so that was not my experience at all. She is a first generation American in her family. Her parents do not have papers that make it easy for her to go to college. And so navigating a lot of those troubles with her was eye-opening for me. And it was humbling. It was something that I needed to identify with and accept and walk with her through that. But throughout that, I can now look at people in my organization and realize their troubles and their issues aren't as clear-cut as maybe I make them seem, or maybe as clear-cut as I want them to be, so it's easier for me to navigate through. So it's given me just more of a deeper empathy with the people that I work with.
Very nice. Very nice. I've queued up Tommy, who is going to ask the next question. Let me play that for us.
Hi, Dr. Castleberry. Hi, Ms. Winnery. This is Tommy from Mid-America. It is my senior year. Ms. Winnery, I have 2 questions for you. How do you manage teams that have people with conflicting personalities? And in contrast to that, how do you manage teams with people who have conflicting views? Thank you.
Tommy, this was a wonderful question. Something that is definitely challenging. I feel like people don't necessarily talk about a little bit. So leadership is something that seems really sexy from a distance, and then you get into it and it looks very different when you're in the driver's seat of the bus. So I have a team that is very diverse and very opinionated, right? And you know, when you're around people in data analytics, they get very passionate, they're very serious, but they're also fun. So there's 2 sides of the coin. But the one thing that's nice about Southwest Airlines is there are clear expectations of what we have for employees, right? So it doesn't have to come back to being personal with me when I'm leading. It comes back to, hey, we're here to do a job. There are expectations that you get along with your teammates, that you manage through conflict, that you act like an owner. And when you show up and you're not doing those things, then it's my responsibility to let you know, hey, you're not meeting expectations. You're not holding up your end of the bargain with this employment opportunity. So I love Brene Brown. She's one of my leadership mentors via all of her books and podcasts. And one of her phrases is clear is kind. And so I think there's a lot of times where we go through these pleasantries, and we're in the South. And so we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, so we dance around. But when you're clear and you can say, hey, when you said this, it gave the impression that you believe X, Y, Z, or that you think that you're superior or self-righteous to this person. I know that wasn't your intent. I'm assuming positive intent, but you have to realize that your actions create these ripple effects. And so I think just being pretty direct with communication is helpful more than hurtful.
Oh, excellent. And you know, I think one of our goals here is helping them start to think outside of those bubbles that we get comfortable in, just like we, you know, whether the college setting is a bubble or the classroom itself, you know, and that you don't have to be an on-ground campus, a site campus, to exist in a bubble. And in fact, I feel like that's resonant for so many of us that have shifted to remote lifestyles and sort of like practicing X amount of social distancing. You know, even when we're congregating via Zoom. Now, this is a relatively small encounter, but I've been a part of these enormous congregations here, and you need to be able to kind of mediate these situations. It's a time where maximizing communication is as essential as ever, because now we're dealing with technological blips and all kinds of things like that. I have Caleb set up here. I'm going to play his questions.
I'm a senior at Mid-America Christian University, and my 2 questions for you today is, how do you plan on giving your customers the reassurance that Southwest Airlines is the safest airline to fly with? And my second question is, what platforms do you think work best for advertising Southwest Airlines? Thank you.
Great. All right. So the very first question you asked, Caleb, is something that's really on the top of our minds at Southwest Airlines, because, and it's a unique challenge that I think you'll appreciate, in the sense that we are educating our customers about the cleanliness of our airlines right now, right? So we've gotten these disinfectant sprays, and every 20 days we'll be spraying these planes. The planes will never be cleaner than they probably have been in the past, right?
It's an incentive to fly.
Yes, it's an incentive to fly. But you know, you have your family, you're boarding a flight, and you're going on a vacation, right? You open your tray table and some crumbs fall out. Well, in your mind, do you feel like that that plane is clean at that point. And so we're going to have to do some customer educating of disinfectant is different than sweeping and cleaning and vacuuming necessarily. You know, you can be free of germs, but there can also be crumbs, or there can be things left from the previous passenger. So it's going to be a hurdle, I think, of getting people accustomed and feeling like they are safe on our flights. And that's something that we take as a challenge and we take as a responsibility. So that is what we're doing right now, is a lot of advertising and prepping for reassuring our customers that our planes are clean.
I want to say that the second part, I didn't mean to play both, but I did. But Caleb's second question relates to what are you seeing? What trends are you seeing? Someone that now has expertise in data analytics, which tools are the most valuable for your airline's advertising dollars, right? Where's that focus going?
Yeah, and let me just say, I'm not a marketing expert at all, but from what I am privy to in terms of marketing analytics and some insights that we're gaining from our customers, is it depends on your demographic, right? So one of the things that they're looking at right now is social media. And so you have these bloggers and these influencers that are sweeping the nation. And so we incentivize influencers to fly on us, to post and to have a good experience. And then hopefully that will drive more customer engagement. Another thing that's unique to Southwest Airlines is that we don't sell our flights on any third-party marketing apps, and so people have to push to our site. So they have a sense of responsibility to come and check our prices, because you can't find them on a Kayak, you can't find them on an Expedia. And so because we have such a loyal customer base, we have an opportunity to kind of do direct marketing to them. And so my guess is that's pretty successful. And our Rapid Rewards program is very successful, but I'm not sure specifically what platform is working the best.
I feel like I'm learning something here in that Southwest Airlines isn't pinging on those third-party sites quite the same way.
Yes. Yeah, so it's cheaper for us to control our own website and to not have people fly or to purchase through those third-party websites. And so we've made the strategic decision not to join or share our loads or our flights with those companies, because they take such a large commission. And so it allows us to keep our flights a little bit cheaper by not having to dole out extra commission on top.
That's very interesting, because one of our tie-in texts that we're reading in this course, not yet, but we will get into in the coming weeks, is a book that we actually share across several classes in the Communication, Media, and Ethics program. And it's Spreadable Media by Henry Jenkins, Sam Ford, Joshua Green. And one of the tenets of their book is essentially that for the modern organization, especially the large one, if they're not spreading through various means their message, then they're essentially dead in the water. But these terms, spreadability and stickiness, are not necessarily contrasts, but ways to think about and understand the nature of marketing and advertising. And what you're describing, this is a tease for the class since they haven't really got into the book yet, but what you're describing is very much this philosophy behind stickiness. This idea that you have a destination, the site, where the commerce is predominantly exchanged, that has drawing power. And because they're not necessarily the consumer getting it from these other outlets through those spreadable tactics, or at least that familiar spreadable tactic, they have more incentive to stay longer and produce more business, right, through their engagement in the website, thus demonstrating, right, where we get that term stickiness, right, that it's about a drawing and consistency for any type of web platform. Just a little nugget there for us. It's a fantastic book. All right, I believe I have Haley queued up. Let's take a question from Haley.
Hi, Mrs. Winery. My name is Haley Helton, and I am a junior at Mid-America Christian University this year. My first question for you is, what is the key to keeping yourself from feeling overwhelmed with such a high leadership position?
Ooh, okay.
Hey, Lee. I feel like you know me by that question. So I am type A. I am pretty organized. And so the thing that helps me kind of collect my thoughts is making lists and keeping things organized. So if I can prep my day and I know how it's going to go roughly, sometimes as best you can in leadership, then that's helpful for me. If I have a to-do list of things that these are the key things, the critical things that have to get done, and not that I add everything to that to-do list, but I add the most important things to that to-do list. The other thing that I've learned about myself is I have to over-prepare, which is the most obnoxious thing in the world. But in order to know that I have done everything I need to do, I have to over-prepare. And so that means putting in extra time, putting in extra hours, carving out extra time to make sure things are right. And that makes me better. And so I practice things through with my leaders and my boss. When I'm going to have a tough conversation, I put a lot of thought into my quarterly reviews, and so over preparation. And then just personally, just taking care of myself. So making sure I'm moving my body, getting enough water, going to sleep at a reasonable time, having some consistent, routines and habits is helpful for me.
I forgot what I was going to say. I got wrapped up in the response there. But we were just talking about. We were either just talking about it, or I was lecturing about it, or it was in private feedback with students. But this philosophy of over preparing, right? And how when we can execute that, especially on our primary tasks. I mean, that's doing the job. I mean, that's meeting that criteria. And what this gets at a kind of trick question that we posed in week 1 with them of the course, where we're asking about passion and the significance, the importance of finding your passion in what you do, or locating your passion and finding a way to pursue that, and whether or not we can fake passion. I love it because we get varying responses from students, and I think what you're describing is a kind of appreciation for knowing that when you're putting in the preparation, you're going to give yourself the maximum room to engage that passion of the fulfillment of your job tasks. Let me play the first question from Aaliyah.
Hello, my name is Aaliyah Watts, and my first question for Morgan would be, which of your core skills do you believe has contributed to your success? And my second.
All right, which core skills have contributed most to your success? Maybe you just answered this question. I don't know.
So one of the benefits I think I found from coming from a small town is people skills, of learning a lot about people and how to talk to people. When I went to college, my friends would ask me, what did you do in your small town if you didn't have a movie theater? And I said, well, we'd go over to people's houses and we would visit. And visiting was the thing that you did. So I think that definitely helped me and groomed me in ways that I probably didn't appreciate when I was in the moment. But the other thing I think is just perseverance, not taking no for an answer. If you want to work really hard, working hard is so fun. Sorry, my dog's, you're going to hear her little steps, but working hard is fun to me. And I get fulfillment out of knowing that I've over prepared and knowing that I've worked my tail off. And I think that is something that has really benefited me.
Awesome. Let's continue with Aaliyah. We've done well going 1-2 on these so far. I hate to lose momentum here. Sometimes I'm kind of playing DJ and then I get a little lost if I jump around too.
The second question for you would be to tell me about a time when you had to implement a new standard and how the transition went. Thank you.
So coming from an organization where people are very tenured and don't like to leave, right? that change is very hard. And so one of the things that I love to do is look at a process or something that's like inefficient and make it better. So if there is a report that I can automatically send to somebody that I don't have to manually download, save, and then send, I'm going to figure out a way to get that to them as soon as possible, right? If there's a PowerPoint that we're doing that we need to have 15 clicks every 2 months to do, how do we make it one click? And so an example of a process that we implemented would be a digital report. And so we kept printing these and downloading them, and people were they were very nervous about losing their paper report. And so the thing of it is, and the key to this class is over communication. It's like, I'm going to over communicate this value and how much time it's going to save you so that you see the benefits, and then you're going to buy in, right? So sometimes the buy-in takes a little bit longer with people that are change adverse, but that's what you have to do. You have to over communicate the value.
Oh, excellent. I like it. And while I'm in the D2L discussion page, Neri has a pair of questions that they come across really clean and clear. A great upgrade in week 2.
My name is Neri Jaffa, and I'm a student at MACU, and these are my top 2 questions for Morgan. My first question is, what does it take to be a senior coordinator at Southwest Airlines?
All right. What does a senior coordinator entail at Southwest Airlines, it sounds like?
So the senior coordinators help with a lot of the logistics, and they help lead the team in a way. And so I started as a coordinator and then was promoted to a senior coordinator. And again, tying back to, I think, Rebecca's earlier question of asking what's a misconception that people have. And so at Southwest, and I'm sure at other organizations, before you become a senior anything or you're promoted, you have to prove that you can operate at that level, right? So you're doing that level of work in your day-to-day job before that promotion kind of hits, which kind of seems wrong. Like in my head, I think I used to think, oh, well, once I do a good job at this, then I'll start doing this, but it's not necessarily that. You start proving that you can operate at that level beforehand. But that's just being a leader on the team, finding ways to improve, mentoring other people around you, being a good business consultant, and interacting well with other people.
You bring up such an important employee quality, and that is not waiting to be told to do something, essentially, but also not putting yourself, not allowing yourself to enter the mindset of feeling put out if there's space on your plate to take on more, or to help encourage others to work through certain tasks. And that I want to direct it back to when I mentioned we talk about passion, and sometimes that can be a red light. It can be an indicator that where we're at, what we're doing is not ultimately giving us a kind of employee satisfaction, if not a personal satisfaction, because we just can't get to that level, and it might be worth resetting in some way, right? Considering if that's where you're looking to invest the next 2 years, 5 years, what have you. It's a great insight. Let's catch the second part of Neri's entry.
Could you narrate a day of how it goes? And my second question is, what drove you to go for the airline industry as a whole? Thank you.
Yeah. So I read a John C. Maxwell book in college, I think 21 Laws of Irrefutable Leadership. I think that was the book that it was. And he talked a lot about Southwest Airlines. And so honestly, it was the corporate culture that drove me there. Like I had said, I had been in an experience that was different before. And so I really wanted to learn, okay, there are people that do this well, and there are cultures out there that take care of their employees. What does that look like? And so that kind of, when I knew my husband and I were making the move to Texas, that was the company that I sought out, that and the travel benefits. I'm not going to lie. So the idea of being able to hop on a plane and fly for free definitely has its perks.
you know, we try to stress this in certain ways, right? It's look for the incentives. What kinds of incentives do you want in your career path? And you know, that something like I'm not even thinking about my version of education. You know, now that I've transitioned into administration as well as a faculty member, you know, I'm 12 months out of the year I'm invested here, and honestly, you know, I've been pursuing these kinds of goals 12 months out of the year for years on end. But I think one of those draws initially, and to many people in education, is those you know, mythological offsets of more time, or a different kind of schedule or routine, right? A different approach to the calendar year that has its own built-in rewards. And like you, I appreciate being able to travel, so I can definitely identify with those kinds of perks. And I used to socialize, shall we say, with someone with some of those connections, and definitely it was a bountiful it created some bountiful opportunities to minimize cost in some travel situations. Let's hear from let's hear from Tia, and then I think I still have one more question from Haley to kind of wrap us up. All right, and so I believe Tia has a bit more of a topical question in mind.
Hello, Morgan. This is Tia. I'm care student at McHugh. Thank you for your time today. I'm amazed by your professional experience and the skill set. I have two questions for you. The first one is, after working for Southwest Airlines for 5 years, you choose to pursue your master's degree in business administration and got a certificate in finance. What made you make that decision?
All right. How does Morgan decide when it's time to go back to school, What was that journey like?
So thank you for that question, Tia. I always knew that I wanted an advanced degree, that I wasn't going to be done with my bachelor's degree. That was something that I just always knew, even when I started undergrad. So at first that looked like law school, and then I got to Southwest Airlines, and I loved corporate America, and I loved the way the business was run. And so I realized that I had a knowledge gap between studying political science and women and gender studies and the business world. And so part of it was an aim to establish my credibility in the space. And then part of it was I wanted to learn something new. So I had never taken econ, I'd never taken stats, even though I was in data analytics. And I had never taken many finance courses before. And I love finance. And so everyone told me that, like my parents in particular, they're like, you're not good at math. And I found out that's not true. You guys made that up for me. So I was able to do something hard that I enjoy, that I wanted to just challenge myself. And so that was my master's degree. I thought, well, heck, I've never done this before. Let me see if I can do it.
Oh, excellent. I don't think the follow-up question kind of takes us down a different path, but it does have to do with timeliness. Let me go ahead and play it.
And the second one is, COVID-19 has brought a lot of influence to different businesses. And I think Southwest Airlines will make many adjustments to face COVID-19. What adjustments did your department make in order to cooperate with Southwest Airlines to minimize the loss? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very timely question. Great question. So as you know, the airline industry is highly regulated, and we have a responsibility to the public to hold to those regulations and to adhere to them and to be as safe as possible. That is something that we owe our customers. That's something we owe ourselves. And so because we're highly regulated, we have governing bodies like the FAA, NTSB, the TSA, OSHA, constantly overseeing and evaluating our level of service. And one of the ways that we maintain our ability to fly is through training, which is the department that I'm in. So we have regulated training that has to take place, right? So as soon as COVID happened and we were sent home, we immediately started pulling training records of what classes have to be taught and what classes are nice to haves, right? So we also have an umbrella of leadership and employee training, which costs a lot of money, but we invest in our leaders and it's important. And so we started establishing what was necessary and critical to operate and what was nice to haves. And so all of those nice to haves we cut out completely, and we focused on what do we have to have. And so then when we looked at all of those lists, we said, okay, we have a position to go to the FAA and ask for an extension, right? So flight attendants have to be recurrent every year, but could we give them a 3-month grace period in the case that maybe they've contracted COVID, a family member has contracted COVID, or they have an inability to take their training. And so luckily our governing bodies were made some allowances for that. And so then we've had to build that into our compliance records. So from a data perspective, our team was just hit hard and super busy of, okay, how can we be agile? How can we adapt? And now all of this reporting infrastructure that we've built and we've maintained, how do we make it applicable for the current situation in the current climate? And then everything else, we looked at our budget and basically scrapped any and everything that was going to cost us any money. So in order to save Southwest Airlines money, we gave all of our money back because we're an expense to the organization. We're not a revenue generating department, right? So we have to be very strategic with what we do.
Wow. You mentioned.
Sorry, that was a long answer.
And unpacking it, I think, is important, and really for our students, understanding the minutia of any problem-solving task is significant, right? You have to be able to connect the dots, especially with the larger the organization, the more essential it is to understand the interrelationship between varying departments, their needs, expenses, and how, we're not all just running around on credit, that there are real problem solving has to take place in a crisis. And it's encouraging to hear about the various methods. And certainly, even MACU, we have no shortage of that type of, problem solution, game hunting all the time, particularly right now. I had a follow-up question from the previous inquiry about you returning to school, getting an advanced degree after a political science degree with some emphasis in women and gender studies. They have a fine program at OU. But one of the things that, of course, is noteworthy is you shifted emphases, and you said you're interested in learning something new, and you were able to really find value in that. One of the areas that some undergraduate students have reservation about is the humanities in general, and really this encompasses a number of degrees. Anything that's not the social sciences or some technical areas, and I think one of the duties that we perform, and certainly it's reinforced even from hearing from young professionals like yourself and others, is that these various degrees do equip us, and oftentimes it's about how much we're taking away and our own ability to apply what we've been equipped with. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of those strengths or even weaknesses from like a humanities-based undergraduate experience?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot of what do I wish I would have studied? And that's a question that I ask most everybody that's older. I say, okay, if you could do it all over again, what do you do different? And then often that question gets turned back to me. And the funny thing is I wouldn't do anything different. I loved my political science classes. Because they taught me how to think, not just in business. A lot of the thinking is very binary. There's a true, false, there's a right, wrong, there's an equation to get you what you're wanting, especially in the finance world. Sometimes. But political science is theoretical. And so it expands your mind into thinking, okay, well, in this scenario, does this make sense or does this apply philosophically? Your topic of ethics, like what is ethics and what is morality and who gets to define those things? And so having that broader level of thinking is invaluable because you don't just become a drone where you can just check a box. You can really look at something and say, but why are we doing this? Like fundamentally, I need to get to the root. And so I wouldn't change it. I love the humanities and I think it's vital.
You don't have to convince me at all. Hopefully it's all projected toward the students. I'm certainly an advocate, and I appreciate all opportunities to kind of halt the train and toot the horn, right, and that sort of thing. Let me return back to Haley for, I believe, the final question from all of those submitted, and then we'll kind of wrap things up from there.
And my second question for you is, amidst this pandemic that we're going through right now, how have you adjusted to the change in the workforce?
Okay, so how have you adjusted?
Oh, me personally. Some days okay and some days not okay, I think is the truth. There are some days that are hard. I mean, my husband's also working from home and my dog is with us as a new coworker as well. And so fumbling through that of what that new reality looks like. Work-wise for me, I think it's how do I be a good leader remotely, right? So when I was hired into this position, I was on campus with my people, sitting in meetings. And now my leadership has to change and my leadership style, how I communicate has to change. I need to be more communicative in this environment rather than less. Otherwise, they feel like they're isolated. And so I will not say that I have it perfected yet. I am still learning and growing and trying to be better, asking for feedback from my people. What do you need from me? What more can I do? But it has been an adjustment all around because the style of leadership that's required in this remote environment is very different. And I don't know that we will be going back anytime soon. So I need to learn those skills sooner rather than later.
Well, up in Oklahoma, we believe we're going back soon, but time will tell. But we're going to forge ahead with all the confidence in the world. But one of the things I think is a nice essential closer here is just reminding students that things will continuously change in your careers, in your work situations, whether it's something like turning to remote work on a dime, or oftentimes we think of something simple like, oh, I'm going to change jobs, but sometimes it's about a paradigm shift that takes place. And one of the things, I get this question from students all the time in media studies classes about, well, what do you see technology like in 10 years? And tell me what that looks like. Like, I don't know. I never owned the 8-ball. I would go over to other people's houses and play that. And it was demonic, right? I couldn't have one. But I don't know, right? Like if I were, soothsaying like that, if I were a prognosticator, then I would be, making additional financial investments elsewhere. So, but what we can anticipate is change itself. What we can anticipate is that technology will continue to progress in ways that are familiar and in ways that will kind of continue to revolutionize what we do. And so, that being comfortable in the ambiguity and being confident to use your example, which I share, of embracing the critical thinking that often comes with so many focus areas in the humanities, is going to service us in positive ways, like having the opportunity to carve out a brief window of time to join us today. Morgan, thank you so much for joining this asynchronous learning experience. Is a little bit different, I know. There will be viewers. The audience will be able to absorb this content. Absolutely an investment on your end, and certainly it is on ours. Appreciate it. Continue to do magnificent things in leadership in the airline, wherever. And I'm glad you were able to come talk to us today.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed it.
All right. And so for the remainder of our group, we'll certainly be in touch. We'll be in dialogue, and I will be reaching out soon with information on our next interviewing opportunity in creating social media presence and cultural movements. Thank you.